So good morning, boys and girls. We're going to continue with Stargirl. We're on chapter 27 now. If you remember in the previous chapter, Stargirl, aka Susan Caraway, was really prepping herself for the state oratorical competition. And she and both Leo had visions of a victory and a grand acceptance upon her return. Now that she was quote unquote normal, she was longing for the popular acceptance from peers, and Leo had also envisioned that. So this will be interesting to see how it plays out. If things come the way they had hoped, they would, as Stargirl moved away from her eccentric self to be more of the typical high school kid in a quest for popularity, or if how will people react to the victory or to the defeat for that matter. So if you've got a book in front of you, follow along. If you are just listening, then get yourself comfortable and get ready for the next chapter of Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli, chapter 27. And our best wishes go with you, Susan Caraway. The PA announcement echoed through the school lobby, and we were off to Phoenix. Think aloud. So remember, the setting of the story now is in Arizona, and Phoenix is a metropolis area in downtown Arizona. The driver was Mr. McShane, Micah High's faculty representative to the state contest. Susan and I sat in the back. Susan's parents were driving their own car and would meet us in Phoenix. As we pulled out of the parking lot, she wagged her finger in my face. Don't get a big head, mister. I was allowed to invite 2 friends along. You weren't the only one, I had asked. So who's the other? I said. Dory. Well then, I said, I think I'll go for the big head. Dory isn't another guy. She grinned. No, she's not one of those. Suddenly, she unbuckled her seatbelt. We each had a back window. Mr. McShane, she announced. I'm moving closer so I can sit close to Leo. He's so cute, I just can't help myself. In the rearview mirror, the teacher's eyes crinkled. Whatever you like, Susan, it's your day. She slid over and fastened herself into the middle seatbelt. She jabbed me. Did you hear that? It's my day. I get whatever I want. So, I said, what happened when you asked Dory Dilson? She said no, she's mad at me. I could tell. Ever since I became Susan, she thinks I betrayed myself. She just doesn't understand how important it is to be popular. Think aloud. So Dory Dilson was Stargirl's other friend, and ever since Stargirl became Susan Caraway, Dory Dilson has kind of abandoned her. So that's the trade-off. The signpost from last chapter was when character acts out of character, the contrast and contradiction. And as Susan Caraway enjoys a metamorphosis of sorts of herself from Stargirl to this Susan character whose quest for popularity seems endless and public acceptance, she lost another true friend in the process. Well, at the moment, at least Dory Dilson is angry with Stargirl. But Leo's not. Leo got what he wanted. He got the girl that he liked to start to behave like everyone else. All right, back to the book. I wasn't sure what to say to that. I was feeling a little uneasy. Fortunately, wondering what to say wasn't much of a problem for me during the 2-hour ride because Susan chatted away like the old Stargirl the whole time. But I know Dory, she said. I'll tell you one thing. What's that? She'll be in the front row of the mob cheering for me when we get back tomorrow. I later found out that after we left the school, the principal had spoken again on the PA. That's the public announcement system. He announced our expected time of return on Saturday and suggested that everyone be on hand to meet us, win or lose. Losing, as it turned out, was never an occurrence to the contestant herself. Would you do a favor for me? She said. I told her, sure. That big silver plate that goes to the winner. I'm such a klutz with dishes at home. Would you hold it for me when the crowd rushes us? I'm afraid I'll drop it. I stared at her. What crowd? What rush? In the school parking lot. When we get back tomorrow, there's always a crowd waiting and watching for the returning hero. Remember the film at school, My Vision? She cocked her head back and peered into my eyes. She rapped my forehead with her knuckle. Hello in there, hello. Anybody home? Oh, I said, that crowd. She nodded. Exactly, of course. We'll be safe as long as we're in a car. But once we get out, who knows what will happen? Crowds can get pretty wild, right, Mr. McShane? The teacher nodded. So I hear. She spoke to me as if instructing a first grader. Leo, this has never happened in Micah before, having a winner on the Arizona State oratorical contest, one of their very own. When they hear about it, they're going to go bananas. And when they get a gander at me and that trophy, she rolled her eyes and whistled. I just hope they don't get out of hand. The police will keep them in line, I said. Maybe they'll call out the National Guard. She stared wide eyed. You think? She didn't realize I was kidding. Well, she said, I'm not really afraid for myself. I won't mind a little jostling. Do you think they'll jostle, Mr. McShane? In the mirror, his eyes shifted to us. Never can tell. And if they want to carry me around on their shoulders, that's okay too. But they better not. She poked me with her finger. They better not mess with my trophy. That's why you, another poke, are going to hold it tight. I wish Mr. McShane would say something. Susan, I said, did you ever hear about counting your chickens before they hatch, you mean? Exactly. I hear you're not supposed to. Exactly. She nodded thoughtfully. Never can make too much sense of me. I mean, if you know they're going to hatch, why count them? Excuse me, why not count them? Because you can't know, I said. There are no guarantees. I hate to break this to you, but you're not the only person in the contest. Someone else could win. You could lose. It's possible. She thought about that for a moment. Then she shook her head. Nope, not possible. So she threw up her arms and smiled hugely. Why wait to feel great? Celebrate now. That's my motto. She nuzzled into me. What's yours, big boy? Don't count your chickens, I said. She shuddered mockingly. Ooh, you're such a poop, Leo. What's your motto, Mr. McShane? Drive carefully, he said. You may have a winner in the car. That set her off howling. Mr. McShane, I said, you're not helping. Sorry, he lied. I just looked at her. You're going to be in a state contest, I said. Aren't you just a little bit nervous? The smile vanished. Yes, I am. I'm a lot nervous. I just hope things don't get out of hand when we get back to the school. I've never been adored by mobs of people before. I'm not sure how I'm going to react. I hope I don't get a big head. Do you think I'm a big head type, Mr. McShane? I raised my hand. Can I answer that? I think your head is just fine, said the teacher. She jabbed me with her elbow. Hear that, Mr. Know-it-all? She gave me her smug face, which promptly disappeared as she thrust up her arms and yelped, They're going to love me! Mr. McShane wagged his head and chuckled. Silently, I gave up. She pointed out the window. Look, even the desert is celebrating. It seemed to be true. The normally dull cacti and scrub were splashed with April colors, as if a great painter had passed over the landscape with a brush, dabbing a little yellow here, red there. Susan strained against her seatbelt. Mr. McShane, can we stop here just for a minute, please? When the teacher hesitated, she added, You say it's my day. I get whatever I want. The car coasted to a stop in a gravelly roadside. The car coasted to a stop along the gravelly roadside. In a moment, she was out of the door and bounding across the desert. She skipped and whirled and cartwheeled among the prickly natives. She bowed to a yucca, waltzed with saguaro, and plucked a red blossom from a barrel cactus and fixed it in her hair. She practiced her smile and her nod and her wave, one hand, two hand, to the adoring mob at a hero's welcome. She snapped a needle from a cactus and with the slapstick pantomime of a circus clown, pretended to pick her teeth with it. Mr. McShane and I were leaning on the car, laughing, when suddenly she stopped, cocking her head, stared off in another direction. She stayed like that, stone still, for a good 2 minutes, and then abruptly turned and came back to the car. Her face was thoughtful. Mr. McShane, she said, as the teacher drove off, do you know of any extinct birds? Passenger pigeon, he said. That's probably the best known. They say there used to be so many of them, and they would darken the sky when they flew over. And the moa. Moa? Huge bird. Like a condor? I said. He chuckled. A condor wouldn't come up to its knee. Make an ostrich look small. 12, 13 feet tall. Maybe the biggest bird ever. Couldn't fly, lived in New Zealand. Died out hundreds of years ago, killed off by people. Half their size, said Susan. Mr. McShane nodded. I wrote a report about those moas in grade school. I thought they were the neatest thing. Susan's eyes were listening. Did moas have a voice? The teacher thought about it. I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows. Susan looked out the window at the passing desert. I heard a mockingbird back there. It made me think of something Archie said. Mr. Brubaker? Said Mr. McShane. Yes. He said he believes mockingbirds may do more than imitate other birds. I mean, other living birds. He thinks they may also imitate the sounds of birds that are no longer around. He thinks that the sounds of the extinct birds are passed down from years and years, from mockingbird to mockingbird. Interesting thought, said Mr. McShane. He says that when a mockingbird sings, for all we know, it's pitching fossils into the air. He says, who knows what songs of ancient creatures we may be hearing out there. The words of Archie Brubaker settled over the silence of the car. As if reading my thoughts, Mr. McShane turned off the air conditioner and powered down the windows. Hair blew in faint, smoky scent of mesquite. After a while, I felt the touch of Susan's hand. Her fingers wove through mine. Mr. McShane, she cooed. We're holding hands in the back seat. Uh-oh, he said. Hormonal teenagers. Don't you think he's cute, Mr. McShane? I never really thought about it, said the teacher. Well, look. She grabbed my face in her hand and pulled it forward. The teacher's eyes considered me briefly in the rearview mirror. You're right. He's adorable. Susan released my blushing face. Told you. Don't you just love him? I wouldn't go that far. A minute later, Mr. McShane. Now I felt something in my ear. I'm putting my finger in his ear. This sort of silliness went on till we rounded Mesa and saw a brown mist on the horizon that announced our approach to the city of Phoenix. That's the end of chapter 28.